tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
We expect if you come in here without a mask that you've got both of your vaccines and you're being an adult about it.
COVID tops the campaign agenda in this election, and voters in border communities know exactly what they want from the next federal government. Also,
it is mentally and physically exhausting, especially given the nature of the incidents that we're seeing this year.
Oh my God.
16-hour shifts, 14 days at a time. Conditions even more grueling this year, and firefighter fatigue is becoming a serious threat. And
right now, our situation going up is 10,500.
what's behind a 400% increase in the cost of shipping containers? Here's a hint. It's pandemic related, and it's dealing a big blow to BC businesses. Good evening. Anita is off tonight. I'm Tanya Fletcher, and we begin with breaking news. A woman found dead on a blueberry farm in Pitt Meadows may have been the victim of a bear attack. Her body was discovered in a field along Dudney Trunk Road near McKechnie Road on Sunday. The Conservation Officer Service says it's working with the RCMP to determine whether a black bear may have been involved. They're also urging people who live in and around Pitt Meadows to be extra cautious. Conservation officers, along with their predator attack team specialists, are still on site. The Integrated Homicide Investigation Team is also investigating this discovery. It says it's awaiting the results of an autopsy to figure out the exact manner and cause of death, but they say it appears the body may have been disturbed by an animal. We'll bring you more details on this developing story as soon as we get them. In other news now, COVID-19 is a dominant issue in this federal election, but seeing as healthcare is largely a provincial responsibility, voters in border communities like White Rock have their sights on one national issue that the federal government solely controls. That's Canada's border with the United States. Well, today the U.S. confirmed it won't allow Canadians across the land border until at least September 21st. But as our Balpuri of the CBC's Impact team reports, those who live near the border are instead laser focused on the visitors coming up from south this way.
It's a good time to raise a glass to American customers.
We've missed you.
Visitors from the United States are welcome on one condition.
We expect if you come in here without a mask that you've got both of your vaccines and you're being an adult about it.
The craft brewery is among dozens of businesses that sit in the shadow of BC's busiest border with the U.S. After an 18-month COVID closure, the land crossing is now open to fully vaccinated Americans. Some want the U.S. to reciprocate and open it southbound and believe the Canadian government can help make that happen sooner than September 21st with vaccine passports.
We don't have anything right now to show that we're double vaxxed other than a little piece of paper that says you got 2 shots. So I think that's something the federal government should get on.
Border openings and closings are pretty much where it ends when it comes to debate about the pandemic at a federal level. Under the Canadian Constitution, healthcare is a provincial responsibility. There have been lots of calls for country-wide restrictions and policies.
You can't be dictatorial in that. There has to be a relationship unless things really get out of hand, and then that's when you have to step in and look at how you can manage that more effectively.
In addition to being a border town, White Rock is also part of a federal riding that swings between Liberals and Conservatives. The Tory incumbent has been critical of the current government's lack of metrics around the borders opening and closing. This expert in infectious diseases also has her eye on the border.
So we've had a lot of introductions of COVID through our international borders. That's why we have variants. And so if we can maintain testing at borders and maintain borders that don't let in too much COVID, that will help us.
White Rock merchants estimate the border closure costs them 30% to 60% in lost revenues. But it's not worth a further relaxation of travel restrictions.
I don't want the borders to open for any other reason than it's safe to do so. It's not about the money for us, it's about safety.
Balpuri, CBC News, White Rock.
For the second time in a month, BC is bringing in targeted restrictions in a bid to slow the spread of COVID-19. As of midnight, new orders will blanket the interior health region, the entirety of it. And our Michelle Gassoub is here with details. So, Michelle, what's behind these most recent bolstered measures?
Tanya, restrictions were put in place in the central Okanagan 2 weeks ago, and since then there has been a leveling off in that area. But now cases in other parts of interior health are also taking off and putting a strain on the healthcare system. The majority of these cases are in unvaccinated people, and Dr. Bonnie Henry says displacement because of the wildfires is making things worse.
We realized that we really needed to take an approach, a regional approach, that accounted for the fact that people are being displaced and are moving across and within the interior region. And that is one of the driving factors with what we're seeing with increased cases.
Here are the restrictions in place as of midnight tonight: the return of an indoor mask mandate, a limit on personal gatherings to 5 guests or 1 other household. Outdoor gatherings are limited to 50 people, and there are also limits on organized gatherings and fitness classes. People are also being asked to not travel to the region for non-essential reasons, regardless of their vaccination status.
And so, Michelle, we also received new modeling today from an independent group. What do those numbers tell us?
If the current situation remains the same, the BC COVID-19 modeling group is projecting a big wave of cases in the fall, largely linked to the Delta variant and children. Now, kids make up 36% of BC's unvaccinated population, and back to school is just around the corner. Dr. Henry has said that cases and hospitalizations are now decoupled because of our immunization rates, but the modeling group says their findings contradict that. We asked Dr. Henry about that today.
The fact that 80% of the population is protected means that we don't expect to see as dramatic a surge. I know that there are some of the models out there that are predicting that it will go up, and that is, of course, why we're taking some of the actions that we're taking, particularly the interior, to take some of the pressure off of facilities that are being stretched for a variety of reasons.
And so what does this mean for BC going forward into September?
BC was set to move into stage 4 of reopening by September 7th at the earliest. That was dependent on reaching a certain level of immunization and a low level of hospitalizations and case counts. Now, we've actually surpassed the target immunization benchmark, but Dr. Henry says we're not quite where we need to be to continue reopening.
I can tell you that my own, it won't be a surprise that I think we are likely to, we always said this would be the earliest, and it's very likely that we won't be seeing move to any more loosening of restrictions in the near term.
A formal announcement is coming on that next week. That's when we can also expect details on BC's back-to-school plan. Tanya?
All right, thank you so much, Michelle. That's our Michelle Gassoub reporting tonight. And now to the numbers. BC's COVID case count remains high as the province records 663 new cases today. Around 41% of the new cases are in interior health. 129 people are in the hospital right now, 59 of them in intensive care. Over the past 24 hours, 1 more person has died from the virus. Well, 2021 has already become one of the busiest wildfire seasons on record in British Columbia. Thousands of people have been forced from their homes this season, and many more are still living under evacuation alerts. As our Brady Strachan shows us now, the aggressive fire conditions are really starting to take a toll on the men and women on the front lines.
This year, fire crews are working in record-breaking temperatures and extreme drought conditions. So far, they've battled more than 1,500 wildfires. Some of them have grown to several hundred kilometers in size, crossed into communities, leaving destruction and charred landscapes in their wake.
It is a very challenging and long season. Our firefighters do 14 to 16-hour shifts, and they are put up at a camp. Normally, they work those long hours for stretches of 14 days at a time.
Hannah Swift and Heather Murray know firsthand how grueling this work can get. In past years, both women worked on initial attack crews for the BC Wildfire Service. Right now, they're supporting firefighters battling the White Rock Lake fire at this camp in Vernon.
When you're out there, you're always on, right? You're situationally aware of things that can harm you or others, so you never turn off your nervous system.
The BC Wildfire Service says as of yesterday, 8,600 square kilometers of area has burned this year, making it the third worst year on record. The worst 3 fire seasons have all occurred within the last 5 years, with more than 10,000 square kilometers of area burning in each of 2017 and 2018.
That's officially the craziest thing I've seen fire-wise.
Crews are feeling the strain of the long fire season. Officials say they have seen more slips, trips, and falls in the field this year. And firefighters say by the time they return from a deployment, they're both mentally and physically exhausted.
When I got home on Tuesday night, I just laid in bed until 9:30 this morning. So, you know, I just didn't really want to do anything. We had a pretty good battle there last week when the heat got really hot and things started blowing up everywhere.
Meanwhile, the fire service is preparing for an inevitable reduction in its ranks. Many of the men and women currently on the fire lines are leaving next month as post-secondary schools begin their fall semester. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Vernon.
And stay with us. Later this hour, we'll hear directly from a BC wildfire fighter who spent the last month on the front lines of one of the worst firefights in this province's history. That's coming up. Well, the wildfire concern has drifted over to Vancouver Island as well, where crews are battling an out-of-control fire that's threatening residents just northeast of Ladysmith. The Cowichan Valley Regional District has declared a state of emergency. The Mount Hayes fire has tripled in size since yesterday and has portions of the regional district of Nanaimo under evacuation alert. It sparked up yesterday afternoon and in 24 hours has grown to more than 70 hectares. More help arrived this morning and helicopters have been bucketing water on the blaze nonstop. Officials say this fire is being fueled by windy conditions. And on that note, let's bring in our meteorologist, Johanna Wagstaffe, live. And Joe, those clouds have been lingering all day, some showers as well. What's the rain situation like where you are?
It was pouring for most of the day here, Tanya. I know I wish I could say it was more widespread, but on the North Shore, we basically had a cell sit over us for most of the day. This is a convective system, so we are seeing pop-up cells and lightning strikes across the south coast, and that's going to translate to the weather across the interior as well. Let me show you the satellite and radar right now. I've added on the lightning strikes. I probably went a bit big with the scale size, but I really wanted you to see what was happening east of Chilliwack. Temperatures are below 30 degrees, so we're not in explosive fire weather conditions, but this is also still a concern for new fire starts. You can really see those pockets of showers, though. Not everyone getting the rain. Down towards Richmond, Delta, White Rock, you've been seeing steadier rain through the day. But in other parts of Metro Vancouver, you've really just had a light sprinkling. This is all thanks to this circulating low sitting just south of us, and you can see those lightning strikes right across the interior as well. But again, cooler temperatures and some showers is hopefully tilting the scale towards this is more of a good news event. Although, as you just mentioned, wildfire startups and wind still a concern for parts of the south coast. This is just a quick snapshot of the accumulated rainfall forecast right through to Sunday afternoon. And as you can see, almost everyone across the province getting some rain, with 2 low pressure systems being our story. So I'll break it down and talk more about temperatures in the long range coming up in a little bit, Tanya.
All right, thanks so much, Johanna. Vancouver police are investigating a violent assault by a panhandler.
Could you please move out of the way?
This happened 2 weeks ago in the middle of the day. Officers say a panhandler approached a car on West Georgia near the Vancouver Art Gallery. The person asked for money, then started behaving erratically and suddenly attacked the driver, throwing a bottle at his head and injuring him. Anyone with information is asked to contact police. After a year of shutdowns, labor shortages, and product delays, many BC businesses are being hit with a massive operational cost. The price of shipping containers has risen again, this time by more than 400%. The CBC's Janella Hamilton is hearing how it's affecting business owners in this province.
It has gone up 5 to 6 times.
Alok Consul is the co-owner of Harry Stones Limited. He says since January, his company has had to pay thousands of dollars more for shipping. Harry Stones relies on imports from around the world and uses up to 50 containers a month.
Last year up to December, we were paying from China or from other countries about $1,500 to $2,000 a container. And right now, our situation going up is $10,500.
Consul says he has never seen prices increase so fast in his 20 years in the business.
There's no end to it. We're very scared because it creates a lot of headache, lot of calls, lot of aggravation.
So why have shipping costs skyrocketed? Transport Canada tells CBC News the pandemic has had a major impact on global supply chains and the demand for goods has gone up. It says container ships can only carry so much, ports are congested, and the blockage at the Suez Canal have all led to higher freight costs. The Burnaby Board of Trade says the cost increase is hurting businesses across the Lower Mainland. It's taking calls from concerned business owners every day.
Businesses can absorb something that's 500% over the course of a few months. And that's really the challenge, is just the scale and the speed with which this has happened.
Redicop says the continual rise in container costs is crippling for many small or medium-sized businesses that are still trying to recover from the pandemic.
For many businesses, I'm afraid this could be a life and death scenario. They've got customers, they've got jobs, they're trying to bring their goods in to do those things, and only to be hit with this problem now, another challenge.
Redicop says the association has written to Transport Canada and is hoping the government will soon be able to provide them with some help. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Burnaby.
And a reminder, you can watch this newscast live on CBC Gem. It's a free app. It's available where you can find your other CBC programs. CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. The frantic race to get out of Afghanistan continues, but evacuations are being hindered by cumbersome processes inside and outside the country. Stay with us. And thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. A vibrant, bright new mural just went up in Corner Brook, Newfoundland. It's a tribute to Crow Gulch, a neighborhood of about 45 families that was demolished in the late 60s. As Colleen Connors shows us, two Mi'kmaq artists created that as a tribute to the community.
7 meters long, 2 meters wide, and hiked up high on 4 large posts near the mill and a popular intersection. With $37,000 from the city, these two artists paid tribute to a forgotten Corner Brook community.
Crows symbolize prosperity, good fortune, and they also show that the ancestors are still with us and their memories are still alive.
Crow Gulch, just down the road from here, where about 45 families lived. Not everyone was Indigenous, but many people who lived there were Mi'kmaq and lived below the poverty line.
We used to go up on the Rockies there, picking berries and hazelnuts and all that.
Margie Benoit Wheeler grew up there and spoke to the crowd today about fond memories of her childhood.
That was the first house on the hill there.
But says racism was prevalent.
We was called savages, we was called Indians, we was called everything down there.
The houses were demolished in the late 60s, and people had to relocate to the city's first social housing project. Now the mural stands to mark the history and help people remember.
Crow Gulch was a community. It was a community of love, life, vibrance, and I think the artists have captured that with this beautiful, vibrant colors and the motifs here, as they explained.
Douglas Walburn-Goff's grandparents grew up in Crow Gulch. He read aloud from his now famous book on the neighborhood.
She loved his swagger. That bigger than I look way he entered the room, somehow underlined with respect.
And visual artist Jordan Bennett hopes that following this big launch today, that residents come to this parking lot, sit and talk, and learn more about Crow Gulch.
I hope that they take a moment. I hope that they take the time to come and visit. And I think for me, visiting is very important within my artwork, but also within my family and my community. And I think you learn a lot about who you are and where you come from when you take the time to stop and visit.
Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
And we'll be back with all the highlights from day 6 on the campaign trail, exactly 1 month out from the federal election. Stay with us. As the federal election campaign heads into its first full weekend, party leaders are building more and more planks into their platforms. Conservative leader Erin O'Toole added some detail to his party's plan to recover the more than 1 million jobs that have been lost since the start of the pandemic.
We will cover 25% of the salary of any net new hire, with that support increasing up to a maximum of 50% based on how long the new employee has been out of work.
The Tories' so-called job surge plan would be available to all sectors and would not be pegged to business losses the way the current Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy is. The current program right now is set to expire in October.
Within the first 100 days of a new mandate, a re-elected Liberal government will introduce 10-day paid sick leave for all federally regulated workers.
Liberal leader Justin Trudeau was also talking about jobs and workers today. He focused on workplace safety and wellness. In addition to promising those paid sick days, he unveiled a tax credit that would help small businesses offset the cost of buying or upgrading ventilation equipment.
They did nothing to ensure the security and safe passage of Afghans at a time when it was still possible to do. Instead, what he did was he called this election.
And Green Party leader Annamie Paul did not make any formal campaign announcements today, but during a technical briefing on green technology, she took a shot at Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, criticizing their effort to get Afghans who helped Canada during the war out of the country now that the Taliban has taken control. Now, the Liberal and Conservative leaders also spoke of their commitment to reconciliation today. But NDP leader Jagmeet Singh went a step further with a visit to a Cowessess First Nation in Saskatchewan. Here's Olivia Stefanovic on the race for the Indigenous vote.
A small gesture, heavy with meaning. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh's campaign path led him through rows of small red flags, each representing evidence of possible human remains near the former Maryville Indian Residential School.
It's about Indigenous people being denied justice, being denied dignity.
Singh says his own experience with marginalization drives him to seek accountability.
I know a little bit what that's like, and I promise you I'll be different.
Singh made the announcement today in a Conservative stronghold where the NDP doesn't even have a confirmed candidate yet, indicating today's announcement is more about appealing to the wider Indigenous community, which other federal leaders are trying to court.
What we need to do is continue to be unbelievably ambitious.
Liberal leader Justin Trudeau is promising to advance the work his government started.
It is not an easy journey towards reconciliation we are on, but is one that we are on strongly, firmly, and resolutely.
Mr. Trudeau, I know, cares, but he never acts.
While Conservative leader Erin O'Toole's pitch focuses on economic development.
Wouldn't it be great if for the first time we could have intergenerational opportunity and wealth transfer, not trauma?
But after so many broken promises, residential school survivors are looking for concrete action.
I take that as like when you hold a feather and you promise something, you know, and you have to live up to your words.
All three leaders have now visited the unmarked graves in Cowessus. Now they have 4 more weeks to prove they will live up to their commitments. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Cowessus First Nation.
And taking you overseas now, in Kabul today, the Taliban watched over the first Friday prayers to be held ever since they took over the Afghan capital. The Taliban called for unity, urging imams to persuade people not to leave Afghanistan. According to NATO, more than 18,000 people have flown out of Kabul since the takeover 5 days ago. Scenes of chaos and desperation at the airport have sparked widespread criticism of the U.S. for its troubled retreat from Afghanistan. Well, every day the chaos and fear there deepens as people clamor to get out of the country and away from the Taliban. Tonight, we can tell you that 188 more have escaped aboard a Canadian military plane. But planes may not be enough if people can't reach them. Our Susan Ormiston has more on what one Canadian man says he encountered when he tried. And a note, we are protecting his identity for his safety.
Outside Kabul's airport, more chaos. Caught in the middle today, 15 Canadian Afghan men, women and children desperately waving their Canadian passports and flags.
We took all the risk just with the hope that our families would be able to call down and someone will say, yes, you're Canadians, come forward.
After days holed up in Kabul, a message came from Canadian authorities: go to the airport. They navigated dangerous Taliban checkpoints with no incident. But meters from the entry gate, U.S. soldiers fired to disperse the crowd.
We waited, they were shooting at us, non-stop shooting. There were women, Susan, trembling and shaking from the sound. This is a passage to death, list of a passage to safety and security.
Like so many, desperate to leave, this group was on the evacuation list and assured they too would get help to enter the airport. That didn't happen.
During this crisis,
Prime Minister Trudeau wouldn't answer if Canadian authorities would go outside the airport to retrieve evacuees, as other countries have.
I can tell you that everyone is working incredibly hard, day and night, to try and get as many people out of Afghanistan into safety as possible.
But many are still stranded. Aleem and his group back in Kabul in fear.
I'm talking here about Canada's sole responsibility to protect and secure its citizens. Where is that reality right now for 15 Canadian lives? How can I pose that question to Justin Trudeau right now on the election?
Unsafe where they are, they'll try the airport again. They have no choice. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Toronto.
Afghan women are increasingly concerned about their rights and their safety following the Taliban takeover. The CBC's Chris Brown hears from women there, some trying to get out, others determined to stay and fight.
The Taliban may be calling for moderation, but scenes of parading warriors in white will only fuel worries that Afghan women have much to fear from the militants whose treatment of them in the past was abhorrent. Today, this Afghan TV report showed a remarkable protest of brave women. We fought for a long time for our rights, she said. We don't want to lose what we have. The early days of this Taliban rule have been a mix of confusion and fear, said a young activist named Zara, who understandably asked us not to show her face. She's in Kabul, but has spoken to women around the country.
3 out of the 6, they told me everything is uncertain right now. We don't know if the schools are going to reopen, if the Taliban are going to let us go to school.
The Taliban have let their officials be interviewed by women, and their leaders are saying things the West wants to hear.
The teachers are working, the doctors are working, the students are studying, the schools are open, the universities are open.
Still, it's hard to believe that such fanatics can temper their beliefs, says a former judge who now lives in the U.S.
They're probably playing that double game, asking international community, yes, we will be behaving,
but unfortunately on the local level, they're pushing people and pressurizing people.
This young woman, who said she played basketball on Afghanistan's national team, was among the thousands trying to flee today.
It's scared because I'm girl.
But Zara, the young activist, told us she wants to stay.
The country will be left to a disaster if there are no activists standing here and telling the Taliban what is wrong and what is right.
Still, until the Taliban's intentions are clearer, she says she plans to stay out of sight. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
With the United States extending their land border restrictions with Canada for at least another month, how does that affect those once again delayed from reuniting with friends and family? We'll have that story coming up.
There are laws against loud cars, there are laws against loud stereos, but in most cities in Canada, if you put a loud stereo in a car, the driver seems to acquire a kind of immunity from prosecution, no matter how much noise his or her sound system makes. Well, no longer, at least not in Vancouver. A while ago, some shell-shocked Vancouverites told their city councillors to listen up. They did. And now the owners of these so-called boom cars have been told to turn it down or face an entirely different kind of music. Johanna Singh has the story.
For people who live near Robson Street in downtown Vancouver, the sounds of teenagers in cars cruising up and down has become unacceptable. The culprit, boom cars, cars with huge stereos worth thousands of dollars, some 30 times louder than the average home stereo.
Living became intolerable as far as noise goes. You couldn't enjoy simple pleasures of watching TV or listening to your stereo because the boom cars just make so much noise that they just sort of take over the apartment.
Allison banded together with other downtown residents and asked City Hall to ban the boom cars. Last night, council amended their noise bylaw. Now, it states if a car stereo can easily be heard by someone outside the vehicle, the driver can be fined between $50 and $2,000.
We're just so happy that the council has listened and it proves that people do have power.
But not everyone is pleased with the new bylaw. James Tully boasts that his boom car can be louder than a jet engine, but he says he shouldn't be lumped together with the teenagers on Robson Street.
And I mean, I don't make a point of showing off the stereo. It's for my enjoyment, basically. I like stereos. It keeps me happy.
A friend of Tully's agrees and says boom car owners like them shouldn't be subject to the new bylaw.
You know, having a bylaw through the whole city, when you're just driving home listening to your stereo, you pass by somebody's house, you're 8 seconds. This is the maximum he's going to hear any kind of a thumping noise, and it's really not that loud.
The police aren't saying how widely they'll be applying this bylaw throughout the city, but they do say in the downtown core it will be strictly enforced. A police spokesman says they'll soon know if the threat of a fine will be enough to persuade boom car drivers to turn down the volume. Johanna Singh, CBC News, Vancouver.
Here are some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
We expect if you come in here without a mask that you've got both of your vaccines and you're being an adult about it.
COVID-19 has shot to the top of the issues list in this election. And while healthcare is largely a provincial responsibility, the border is fully in the hands of Ottawa. With the border remaining sealed, though, to Canadians driving to the U.S. for at least another month. We hear from voters in border communities like White Rock. They say they know exactly what they want from the next federal government.
It is mentally and physically exhausting, especially given the nature of the incidents that we're seeing this year.
Imagine working 16-hour shifts for 2 weeks at a time. Wildfire conditions are even more grueling this year, and the exhaustion is really setting in. Firefighter fatigue is becoming a bigger and bigger threat, with a long ways to go yet still in this forest fire season.
Right now, our situation going up is 10,500.
And what is behind a 400% increase in the cost of shipping containers? Transport Canada is blaming it on high demand from the pandemic, but it's dealing a big blow to BC businesses, many already struggling to stay afloat. Well, more bad news for Canadians hoping to cross the U.S. border by car tonight. As we mentioned, Washington has extended the order, keeping it shut yet again, this time until at least September 21st. And as the CBC's Katie Nicholson reports, for some, frustration is now giving way to pain.
Heather Keenley plays with her daughter outside their Montreal home, but her heart is in New York.
I'm the only American from my family on the Canadian side. I have my mother who's battling cancer right now. She's on the other side, my brother, and all of my extended aunts, uncles, and cousins are on the other side of the border.
This picture taken the last time the family was all together there.
We walk into my aunt's town every New Year's Day and go get coffee.
Nearly too pregnant to fly, the expectant mother is keen to pack up her family and drive across for a visit, but she can't.
There's just no reasoning and no science behind whether you're fully vaccinated or not vaccinated. You can enter by air, but a fully vaccinated can't enter by land.
Across the border, where the decision was made, it's not going over so well either. New York Congressman Brian Higgins tweeting today, "It is beyond disappointing. It is hurtful both at a human and economic level." It's more than that, says this Vancouver lawyer.
It seems to be discriminatory in its effect in that it allows people with the luxury of flying to the United States the ability to go see family and friends and travel for non-essential purposes, whereas people who aren't able to afford to fly are limited in the fact that they can't drive across the border and see their loved ones.
Worse, as variants push the number of infections up on both sides of the border, he says there could be further restrictions.
We should buckle up and be ready for probably a fourth wave.
Likely dashing Heather Keenley's hopes and dreams.
We are expecting a baby in October, so that makes it a little bit more difficult now because we're coming up to that point. So for sure, my heart is over there right now.
But for now, she's stuck on this side of the border. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Vancouver.
The continued closure of the U.S. border goes well beyond an inconvenience for many Canadians. In some cases, it's also jeopardizing education and career aspirations. As Katie Fraser is finding out, that's the case for a grade 12 student in Windsor whose dreams of college and soccer might be benched.
In 8th grade, we decided to make the move over to the States where I would play for a team that would allow me to get a scholarship.
Avery Comartin says it's been her dream to play NCAA soccer and get a scholarship to a U.S. college. She's about to enter grade 12 at Holy Names High School in Windsor, and that means time is running out.
Last year, I don't think we realized how much exactly this would affect me.
Avery plays for an elite club team in Michigan, but since the pandemic began, she's been unable to cross the border to train or play. She's afraid her soccer dreams won't become a reality.
It was sad being away from the team and not being able to cross the border, but it's becoming very real this year. As we see girls my age starting to get scholarships and me still not being able to even play.
Avery's father, Chad, says there are other families in the same situation with little help.
Definitely been reaching out, I think, starting in October of 2020, so about 10 months ago, talking with first the federal offices, Minister of Health, Minister of Public Safety. They're the ones that are involved in the travel restrictions and the border restrictions.
Chad says his daughter is left with few options. Live away from her family and finish her final year remotely, which isn't ideal, or give up on her dream.
Either way, I think there is going to be a little disappointment because no matter what I pick, there are downfalls. If I go, I have to leave my family, my friends. I have to do online school again, which, I'm a fine student. I did well online, but it's not ideal. It's not what I like. But if I stay here, I miss soccer, so I think there's going to be disappointment either way.
Katie Fraser, CBC News, Windsor.
Canadians from far and wide are looking for ways to help Haitians affected by the earthquake that killed thousands last week. Coming up, we'll bring you more about the efforts of one man in New Brunswick. This is a live shot of the Tanya Seaside Resort in Parksville tonight, and rain is on the way. Johanna Wagstaffe will join us right after the break with a look at the province-wide forecast.
When Karen Bajelli first learned she wouldn't walk again, she says one of the first things that came to mind was one of her former students who used a wheelchair.
I was instructing him while he waited to get into another school because Malvern wasn't accessible. And I remember thinking at the time what a terrible thing that a grade 9 student would have to leave all his friends and move to a new school because we're not accessible in this day and age.
Malvern's principal says installing a ramp outside, a stair lift inside, and an accessible washroom are in the works so that the guidance counselor can access her office and return to the job she loves.
A process has started, but I'm learning that accessibility in TDSB schools is really a massive project. It's not just Malvern. When someone close to you or someone that you work closely with or that you're responsible for professionally suddenly has some of those accessibility needs, you see the barriers much more.
According to data provided to CBC News by the Toronto District School Board, 153 of its schools are accessible. 114 are somewhat accessible, and 276 are not accessible. The TDSB estimates it would cost between $750 million and $1 billion to make all of its schools accessible. Preparing patients for accessibility challenges is part of the rehabilitation program Bajelli is currently undergoing at UHN's Lyndhurst Centre.
It's a significant transition when they return to the community because unfortunately they will encounter barriers. We try to prepare them to problem solve, but inevitably they will encounter these challenges of this nature. I think we need to do a better job as a society of increasing access for individuals with impairments to fully engage in the workplace.
Bajelli's friends, family, and colleagues contributed to a GoFundMe to help make her home more accessible too. She says support has also been pouring in the form of meals for her family and motivating good morning texts.
You're strong, you've got this.
She hopes her situation sparks change beyond just her school.
Well, if it starts with me, then, maybe something good can come out of all of this.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back, and taking you to Haiti now, where relief efforts are beginning to pick up. The island was hit by a strong earthquake last week, and while some much needed foreign aid is now arriving, residents are concerned about how they will get it. Some of that foreign aid is being provided by Canadians, including a retired professor who's raising money to send essential items to Haiti.
Everything that Shelterbox provides actually can be packed into this one large box. For example, there'd be a set of tools, a saw and a hammer, pliers. There's a stove and utensils, dishes, all metal. They've got mosquito nets, they have ground sheets, they have water purification tablets, and of course the very large tent that will accommodate the 10 people. The box weighs 145 pounds, and the total cost is $1,200. Shelterbox is an organization based in England, and their mandate is to be on the ground early after any disaster to provide everything that people need who've been wiped out. They go to war-torn countries. When people are displaced, they call them conflict refugees. But they also go to places where there have been mudslides, hurricanes, and of course earthquakes, as we now have here in Haiti. In any disaster, there's kind of a 5-step process that you have to go through. The first one, of course, is recovery. That is, if there are people trapped under buildings, you get them out. The second step is to get them medical help. Well, once those needs are satisfied, the next thing that people need most urgently is clean water. And then after that, they need food. And then, of course, after that, if they've lost their home, they need shelter. So that's the sequence of events that you see in any disaster situation. The shelter box is really very important to the recipients. I really don't know why I do it. I think it's payback. As a youngster, I lived in an impoverished situation, and I did well because people helped me get through school and so forth. And I think, well, now I'm in a position to pay back, so that's what I'm doing.
And let's bring back our meteorologist, Johanna Wagstaffe, for a full look at the forecast. And Joe, we've seen this rain and cooler temperatures really all week. Is that what we can expect through the weekend as well?
Yes, very similar. This was really a prelude to the weekend weather forecast across the South Coast and for the interior. And we do need it right across the province, not only for wildfire danger, but also our drought conditions. But incredibly, this is our first at or below seasonal weekend all summer long in through Metro Vancouver. Let me start you off with the bigger picture. I want to take you to wildfire danger. We are still seeing pockets of extreme across the island, the sort of the spine down British Columbia at high to extreme. But as we track 2 low pressure systems, one coming from the north and one sitting to the south of us just now, that will spread good rain, as I mentioned earlier. A quick look at today's high temperature. So this is what we hit. Just 17 18s across Metro Vancouver, 21 out towards Hope. This was one of our coolest days in weeks. About that across the island as well, 22 up towards Nanaimo, and in through the interior, just the high 20s. So anytime we're below 30, that is very good news for the wildfire situation. Obviously not fire ending, but look at these temperatures. I mentioned earlier, staying below 30. Wanted to give you a look at the forecast through the weekend and into early next week. Some mid to high teen temperatures for places like Kelowna, Kamloops, Vernon, and Vancouver. We'll see some of our chilliest weather as well. We'll rebound a little bit as we head into Tuesday and Wednesday. I think Tuesday next week will be our hottest day yet, but look at that, still not hitting the 30s, and then we'll come back down for the end of the week. So just taking a look at the forecast systems, you've got that system coming down from the north. That'll bring scattered showers to the Prince George Peace region. And that will be our story Saturday night into Sunday for Metro Vancouver. So the rain that we're getting today, that's with the system sitting to our south. We get a bit of a break tomorrow for the south coast, and then rain returns Saturday night into Sunday. So breaking it down, just a 21 for tomorrow, mix of sun and cloud. As we head into Saturday night, I think that's when that system will start spreading the showers. Steady rain through the early morning hours. At this point, most models pretty consistent that rain will end Sunday morning. We'll see some clearing skies, but look at those highs. it's get the sweater and socks out kind of day, with temperatures sort of struggling into the high teens. And then, Tanya, we've got that recovery through early next week. But again, nice news that the whole province won't be hitting 30s anytime soon, which is great for wildfires.
Thanks, Joe. And as you mentioned, yeah, that cooler weather is lending a helping hand to fire crews here in BC, but the terrain is still dry and relentless for those on the ground.
That's right, Tanya. I spoke to a wildfire firefighter earlier who has been on the front lines for more than a month now about what he's been seeing.
Back to the same spot, hoping to finish her off and move on today.
I'm Joey Only, and I'm the founder of Interior Weather and Wilderness Watchers Group on Facebook, and I'm a radio weatherman, and I'm also a firefighter crew leader, and I've been working pretty hard for the last month and some.
That is nuts.
We had a pretty good battle there last week when the heat got really hot and things started blowing up everywhere.
I think that's pretty hot.
So in that time, I kind of ran my feet raw and needed just a couple days out of the boots. The fire behavior, I think, in general has been very remarkable this year and very aggressive at times. And you know, we've been witnessing the link 3 of the last 5 years between fire behavior and weather, and therefore fire behavior and climate change, right? So no one seems to be ready for what climate change actually means. And this is what it means. It means large sections of the BC interior, possibly, maybe as you would say, going through a process of desertification, where the intense heat and dryness that's coming in some of these spells makes fire behavior unpredictable and near impossible to control. I can't remember in August that was this windy. One day, 60, 70 kilometer an hour gusts while we were having 30-degree heat. And it's just, because you can't compete with fire during those hours, those peak times of fire behavior.
Boom, holy. Look for fire starts. Oh my God. Hopefully this rain puts it down. That is not good.
We're probably through the extreme heat of the summer, so, and with more and more precipitation and humidity coming up, we're probably going to see this fire behavior calm down a little bit, and it's going to be easy to start to imagine victory starting to pile up, right? You got to hold them a little longer, right?
Just try to kill this area cold.
Got to hold on a little longer and have patience and have faith and know that everyone's trying their best.
Initial attack job today, guys.
You know, everyone really cares.
Rolling with the heavy boys.
Coming up, we're talking memes, that social media trend where imitation and humor collide. After the break, we'll track down the mysterious person behind one of BC's most popular meme accounts.
Green, red, blue, black, red.
Yeah. It seems vibrant and colorful just as much as your personality. It just shines. So
20-year-old Jordan Isaac, equipped with his self-designed helmet and bike, is gearing up for Saturday's big ride at the CNE.
We are raising money for Jordan, Jaliatu, and Saidu, who are 3 children and youth who have Down syndrome, and we're raising money to provide them with funds for speech therapy.
He'll be joined by his mother, his sisters, and dozens of other cyclists. This year's ride is in partnership with Mandem Cycling Club, an inclusive and diverse cycling club in Toronto.
Jordan's like my little homie now, so to speak. You know, like we've gotten pretty close in a short period of time. From a community standpoint, to do something beyond like our events and our rides that I do with the club, it's good to just show that we have much more reach than that, and there's a great opportunity to do community work and have a positive impact, especially with young people.
Besides his love of cycling, Jordan also enjoys painting and dancing, and he has a special performance planned for Saturday.
I like band dance.
Jordan was diagnosed with Down syndrome at 6 months, and he requires speech therapy. His family said it was difficult to afford consistent sessions for him when he was younger. He's been going for speech therapy for about a year now. His family says they've definitely seen progress.
To really work on the fundamental skills that he needs to communicate in different ways, to communicate orally, he communicates through his drawings, he communicates with his dancing, but to work on his speech is just fantastic.
He's more confident, he's talking a lot more, and he's more aware. He's gained a lot more awareness.
So far, Cycle Jordan has raised more than $12,000, close to their $15,000 goal. Money his family believes will make a big difference in Jordan's and the other 2 children's lives.
It's amazing the impact that he's making just like in people's lives, and just such positive energy that he's really impacting and changing in people's lives.
He influenced people in different ways. He's touched so many lives, and don't doubt anyone with different abilities. Just give them the opportunity to excel in whatever it is that they do.
If you're planning on joining the ride on Saturday and you've purchased a ticket, your name could be placed into a draw at a chance to win one of Jordan's helmet creations, and all the proceeds will be going towards the fundraiser. Dahlia Ashry, CBC News, Toronto.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver Inbox.
From September 2nd to 5th, enjoy free outdoor performances, a virtual art walk, exhibits, and more at the Fort Langley Jazz and Arts Festival. Go to fortlangleyjazzfest.com for more info. And don't miss Beaches and Mountains, a special 3-episode audio series that explores BC's most spectacular landscapes and how they'll be affected by climate change. Head to cbc.ca/beaches and mountains.
Well, from poking fun at John Horgan to writing songs about Cactus Club, CBus Memes has become one of the most popular Instagram accounts in the whole province. They've amassed well over 100,000 followers now. But who exactly is behind it? Our Alex Migdal caught up with the anonymous creator.
Hey, yo, Bonnie, why you not responding to my DMs? I sent you.
If you live in British Columbia and you're on Instagram, you've probably seen a post from CBus Memes. The account started in 2018 as a way to poke fun at the humble public transport service between North Vancouver and downtown Vancouver. 3 years later, it's become BC's most popular meme account, satirizing life in the province and boasting more than 100,000 followers. And this is the creator behind it.
I've always been fascinated by memes.
He's asked us not to share his real name or identity, so we'll refer to him by his online name, Daddy CBus, and go with his usual form of disguise.
Man, I know there are accounts that have been around for a long time, but not a lot of accounts before then did like BC and Vancouver specific content.
Let's get to know BC's top meme creator.
When I first started, it was just pictures, just picture memes. And that's still like mostly what I do. But after a couple months, I started experimenting with videos.
I live in North Van. I don't live in Van proper. You gotta take a bridge.
The first time that I really felt like, oh, it's kind of blowing up was I did this Full House theme song parody.
Whatever happened to affordability? Woo! The Grizzlies, the Palladium, the old A&B.
I have to come up with what the song's about, write the song, record the song, animate the video around the song. So it's like, sometimes that'll be like 25, 30 hours. But for like the typical post you'll see of just like 10 image memes in a set, yeah, that'll take me maybe like 15, 20 hours. And I just do that in the evenings after work. My friends are all really supportive. I think they think it's cool. I think I told my mom about it after like a year. But at that point I was like, look, I was like on the radio with it, and like there's an article written about me. And so she was like, I don't think she like knew what a meme was before then, but once I showed her that like the attention it was getting, she was very proud.
BC meme accounts have proliferated in the past couple years, but CBus has stood out from the rest. So what does he think makes a good meme?
I guess that's the key to humor in general, is to sort of, for the punchline to be a surprise. Like I like hyper local things, like really niche things.
Go go, 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 go.
I don't know, like Cactus Club, for example. Like I know there's Cactus Club in like other provinces as well, but it's very much like a BC thing. The like engagement, the likes on my posts skyrocketed since the pandemic. And I think that's because it's something everybody can agree on. I posted a bunch of heat wave memes, and that was my most successful post ever. Just because that's everybody, you can't escape the heat. Everybody's experiencing the heat at the same time.
Daddy Seabus has kept his identity hidden for 3 years. Will we ever know who's behind the page?
I genuinely thought one day I would like show my face on the account. And maybe one day I will, I don't know. But as I kept doing it, I realized that like there's value in the anonymity. When people can see the person behind something, they start putting a lot of their own judgments and biases on the content just based on who the person is, you know?
He's run the account for years as a side hustle. So what's next for Seabus?
The goal would be to just fully be able to make a living off of it. It would be nice to not have to work my day job and balance this at the same time. Doing this kind of stuff is what I really care about. I think there's something, I'm waiting for something better.
Whatever that may be, Seabus has plenty more jokes to ferry around. Alex Migdal, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, if you're looking for some entertainment this weekend, you know where to go. And you can always find our news program online at cbc.ca/BC. Our next local news is right here at 11 o'clock with Zara Prenji right after the National. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great weekend.